Hey guys, welcome to my very first video on scent games for pet dogs. As of right now, I'm thinking I'm going to stick to the realm of detection, but later on, I'm likely going to include some tracking as well. One neat thing about both of those disciplines is that they can start in exactly the same place. And that place from which they start is exactly where we're going to start in this video. And this very first thing we're going to teach our dogs is called an indication. In case you're unfamiliar with that terminology, an indication is just the behavior you want the dog to do when they've located the source of the odor that you've trained them to indicate on. There are a lot of different types of indications, and there's a lot of different ways to teach them. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to show you guys how to create a sit and stare indication. Before we get started, let me talk about what you're going to need and maybe a few considerations. The first thing you're going to need is a very calm, quiet environment. So an environment with not a whole lot going on in it is ideal. And also, you want the floor to be very clear of debris. As long as there's some empty, clear space, that's all you're really looking for. The next thing you're going to need is a dog that's food motivated. We're going to start teaching our dogs through food, and then if your dog enjoys chasing after a ball or a Kong or whatever, we will graduate to that eventually. But it's not entirely necessary that your dog enjoys toys as well. You can teach this using just food, and I will go over that when we get there. The next thing you're going to need is some sort of nonsense item. And usually what's traditionally used, or what I've always used, maybe I should say, is just a lid. Just a simple lid like this. You don't want the item to be super huge, but you don't also want it to be really tiny yet either. So this is maybe an inch in diameter, roughly. I would say anywhere between 1 and 2 inches would be fine. And that's it. That's all you really need. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do is teach the dog to sit even when our lure hand is down on the ground. Let me show you what I mean. What you're going to do, get a handful of your food, put a piece of that food in your hand, and you're going to start off just like you would teach a dog to sit normally. You're going to lure them around, pick the hand up. If they sit, just give them a reward. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to mark them, but you can if you want to. It's not going to hurt anything. This is what you're going to do. Raise the hand up, give them some food. When their butt touches the ground, when they sit. Now, all you're going to do is very slowly, very gradually, get closer and closer and closer to the ground. So we're starting here. She's showing that she understands that, so I'm going to lower it just a little bit. It's about nose height now. She's doing great, so I'm going to go a little bit lower. Getting lower and lower. Till eventually, all the way down at the ground. And this is what you're looking for. Now, one thing you may run into when doing this is that the dog will touch their nose to your hand when you stop moving your hand. Now, if you don't want the dog to touch the scent article later on, then it's probably a good idea that even starting now, if they touch your hand, just say nope and reset and move your hand again. And keep doing that over and over again until eventually they sit and stare, but they don't touch your hand. Then give them the reward and build it from there. All you're really looking for is that you can get your hand to the ground and the dog will stare at your hand without touching your hand. From there, what you're going to do is repeat the process, except now you're going to hold your hand stable for about 3 seconds before rewarding them. We're trying to reinforce the staring aspect of it now. This is what that looks like. Start all the way from the beginning. As long as she keeps staring at my hand. Nope. So she looked up at me, and then nope her, reset her. If she holds it for right around 3 seconds, I'll reward her. That little scoot, you could also nope that. If you want to try to keep it as stable as possible, I would. Nope. So there's that little touch I was talking about. Once that's done, now what we're going to do is add in the lid. And it's going to start right where we left off, which is you're going to take your lid, put it on the ground somewhere, and you're going to show the dog the food, and you're going to put your hand right on top of that lid. If they sit in front of it, give them the food. Now, you don't have to do the whole sit and stare anymore. Just immediately sitting is good enough. We can add the duration back in later. Pick it up, move the lid every so often. There you go. Start there. The next step, take the lid, put it on the ground, and then you're going to point to it. You're going to have your finger on the lid, and then with your other hand, you're going to drop the food. As long as she stares at it, I'll drop the food. She didn't sit there. And what you're looking for is that the dog returns back to the lid. You can purposely throw it further away so that they have to come back and sit in front of it. Once that's consistent, what we're going to do is slowly raise our finger up higher and higher and higher, very gradually, until eventually we're standing straight up and we're not pointing anymore. This is what that can look like. Lid, put on the ground, start just above it. And as the dog goes for the food, raise yourself up just a little bit. So eventually you're standing straight up and the dog is staring at the item and understands it's the lid and not your hand or finger anymore. From there, we're going to add movement. And ideally what we want to be able to do is get behind the dog and deliver food for them from behind, because this is going to play into what the reward delivery looks like when we start adding it to real world context. Same deal, you're just going to have your lid, put it on the ground, you're going to stand still. Dog stares at it, drop the food. Now what you're going to do is just start shuffling your feet. And as long as the, dropped a treat there. And as long as the dog stares at the reward and they ignore your feet movement, drop that food for them. Start moving a little bit more. Nope, if they break up, if they pick their head up, just nope them, move that lid. Try again. Nope. Pick their head up again. Try to get closer and closer to behind the dog. I'm going to reset her there because her head got a little squirrely. I don't like that. It's better. Once it's starting to look a little bit like this, if your dog enjoys chasing after toys, you can add in a toy reward now. And what you do is you just randomly surprise the dog with a toy instead of the food. But once again, you don't have to use a toy. If your dog's not that big into toys, don't use it. Just stick with the food. As long as your dog is at least food motivated, you can work with it. Does it again, I'll throw a TOY. Nova out. Pick up that lid, do it again. Oh, she's in it now. That's the difference a high value reinforcement can make. Try to throw it to where the lid is roughly so their focus stays on the lid. It'll help keep their head stable when they're looking at it. One more time for good measure. From here, it's really easy to teach the dog to indicate on pretty well anything else you want. You could stick with the lid if you want to, or it can be washers or coins. It can be whatever you want it to be. Gun shells, empty gun shells, even larger items like shoes or socks or boots, if you're doing tracking or whatever. It can be whatever you want. What essentially you've taught the dog is a process of learning to indicate on whatever it is you want them to indicate on. And how you do that is the same exact process you just saw, just starting from the finger pointing and standing up. Except now, instead of it being a lid, it's the item you want them to search for. And maybe we'll go over that again in the next video. But for now, just focus on trying to get your dog to sit and stare at the lid on the ground and be able to get behind the dog to deliver your rewards, starting with food reward and then eventually a toy reward if your dog likes toys. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to take that item we taught them to indicate on and hide it in the environment very gradually so that they understand that they have to search for it to find it. Because it's one thing to have a dog search with their eyes, in the context of searching with their eyes to find something, which is what we're doing right now. We have to transfer that to searching with their nose to find it, and then to also indicate, even though they searched with their nose and not their eyes. So there's a little bit of a process to that. It's a very simple process, but we'll worry about that in the next video.